All right, let's go ahead and start because now we're 11 minutes late. We're going to do introductions and I'm going to call on people as I see them on my screen. So listen for your name and all that fun stuff. Ted, K1YON, good evening, say hello and all that stuff.
Let's see, do you copy?
I copy.
Okay, good. Good evening to the group and good to see everybody there. Yeah, my screen also says 20, so I'm not drinking that kind of bourbon you are. Okay, I'm currently in Central Florida and overseeing the Central Florida system here. And when summertime, I'm in northern Connecticut. So I guess that's an introduction. If you want details, maybe we'll go next round, we'll do details on the system.
If we need to, I think we're got enough content to present that.
Okay, so for details, we have nodes and BBSs in Claremont, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Melbourne, Florida, and Vero Beach, Florida. All systems and links are working good, and we are trying to progress south of Vero Beach, and we have some meetings coming up, and it looks positive. Nothing on the air yet, but it looks positive. Up in Connecticut, I think we'll wait until Paul has a conversation. K1YZC, he's in Connecticut. He can update Connecticut for us. Back to you, Brian.
Into UMC.
Thanks. Very good, Don or Ted. Very good. Andrew, K1YMI. Good. Andrew, you want to give me a little update or whatever?
Yeah, Andrew, K1YMI. Manage the K1YMI node
To UMC.
in Herkimer County, New York. That's about it. It's going okay. Somebody's seems to be using the user port at the minute.
Yeah. Frank, Catalyst, were you talking to us or were you checking into a radio net or something?
No, I'm on this system here.
Your audio is really choppy. We can hardly hear you.
That's why I put it in the chat. I'm working on it.
Okay.
Charlie knows I always have issues.
I can't hardly hear you. All right.
He always has issues of one type or another, Brian. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, we aren't talking about you right now, so we're not going to issues. Jason, K4APR, say hello, and you're going to have a lot more speaking time after this. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Jason, K4APR. I'm located in Chesapeake, Virginia. It's 7:14 or 1914 local, and the weather is quite good here right now. So anyways, yeah, I'll have plenty of time to talk about stuff when it's my turn. So I'll let you get on to the rest of everyone in the group. So, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate the invite.
Well, thanks for coming because you're going to have a really nice presentation.
I'm going to do my best.
All right. Mark, N2MH, say hello real quick. Any quick updates?
Yeah, good evening to the group. This is Mark, N2MH. And like it says, I am in West Orange, New Jersey. I split my time between here and Oak Island, North Carolina. I have BBSs at both locations. In New Jersey, I run JNOS. In North Carolina, I run BPQ. And on top of that, I do a lot of Arden mesh work. And I'm basically a troublemaker. Back to you, Brian. And speaking of trouble, you don't have any video. Do you have it turned off?
Oh, Jesus, that's too many damn things. I can turn my video on. Dumbass. There we go. How's that? Thank you.
Oh, now we have to look at you, huh?
Look at the forehead. That's right. It's not a forehead. It's a 5 head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 head.
Oh, I'm glad you're not sitting under a light bulb.
I won't turn the light up. Frank, is your audio working? Frank Catalinas.
We'll try it this way. I don't think so.
I can barely hear you. Just yell into it.
I got to turn off the gain again. I was just checking it. Frank N2UMC, also in Staten Island, New York. And if Charlie wants to go into the detailed history, he has it.
Very good. Ron, K5 or KB5 LNC, say hello and brief introduction.
All right, I'm shifting over. Let me close this on my phone.
I was like, I feel honored that you're here tonight, Ron. Normally I
Yes, sir.
talk to you. I see all your stuff on the golden packet list.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, I got the phone turned off. Let me get the camera on here. All right, Hey, Ron Startzel, KB5 LNC. I've learned about. I like Packet. I'm doing things. I live here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and got really interested in with the Appalachian Golden Packet when I sent an email to Bob Berninga about coming to the. I work at the Pentagon for the Department of the Navy, and I asked him to come to the Pentagon Amateur Radio Club to talk about the satellites they launched up in the summer of 2019. Bob responded, "Love to do it," and then said, "But we don't have anybody manning Hawksbill for the event on Saturday. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "I don't have a Kenwood. I don't know anything other than having an APRS beacon in my truck. That's about all my knowledge of it." So, from that point on, I kind of got hooked on, APRS and I'm getting more involved with Packet because we don't have a lot of it going on down here. But when I learned about the Packet RF forwarding network, I started getting a little bit more interested, and I reached out to Glenn. He briefed the Pentagon Club for there, and as of last week, I successfully got VARA HF working with the QT term, and now I've got I've connected to Dave Elkins' node. I connected to Glenn's node, and I checked, I think, to the person up in New York, just so at least from the Pentagon on. Anyway, so I'm now going to start. Hopefully tomorrow, get out there, get in the Pentagon Club again, and start playing a little bit with QT term to get a little bit more and start getting more fluent in Packet. So
Awesome.
that's where I'm at right now.
Well, Ron, welcome, and I'm glad we've got a lot of new participants in the EastNet group. And we say it's EastNet, but that was the old network that was mostly FlexNet. But when I took over, I finally decided that we need to just welcome everybody and all technologies, and so anybody that's pretty much RF data interested shows up to these calls, and we have a pretty good group. And as we go on to the next person that's going to introduce himself, Glenn N3MEL, he has helped make the group grow. So Glenn, say hi. We'll have an update from you later, but go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Glenn N3MEL in southeastern PA, just west of Philly. And it's good to see everybody on here tonight.
Thanks, Glenn. Ray, N3HYM, want to say hello? You're muted, Ray. Or maybe you're not even listening. N3HYM, you're up. Say hello. Okay. Let's see. My screen just shuffled. So Dale, N0KQX. Want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Name's Dale. I'm N0KQX in Garden City, Kansas, and I have a BBQ HF node trying to get established with the forwarding group. And other than that, just have a general interest in APRS and Packet in general.
Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you.
Thanks.
Chris,
Hello.
WBSA. Frank, we can hear you. Chris, W2, oh, you're unavailable. Okay. Jim, KY2D. Good evening.
Good evening, all. Jim KY2D, formerly of New Jersey, now of Maine. I'm part of RRI, running the Eastern Area Digital Traffic Network Hub, and managing the RRI Eastern Area stations, about 72 of them that are part of our forwarding network for formal radiograms. Also section traffic manager for Maine, and have 2-meter packet going also on BPQ 32. And I'm playing around, not nearly to the depth of Charles, but I'm playing around a little bit with the 44 net as well.
Good to see you tonight and welcome. All right. Right, N2KDX, you shuffled up on my screen here, so I'm gonna go to you before I lose you and not ask you, so say
Yeah,
hello.
very good. Can you hear me okay? Is the mic gain up enough?
You're good, you're good.
Yeah, great. Fred Zalewski. I'm here in New Jersey, Southern New Jersey. I'm a sysop of a WinLink RMS here for the OEM in Camden County, K2EOC. And I don't know very much about packet radio, so I jump on these calls because I'm just trying to soak up what I can to understand what kind of applications may be appropriate for our next project, and so we can serve our agency here.
Great. Well, thanks and welcome.
Thank you.
David, KC1UIX. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Dave Lounsbury, KC1UIX here in Kennebunk, Maine. New to the group and fairly new to the packet radio game. I'm in the process of standing up a JNOS node for our area. And I'm thankful for the help from Brian and Charles and all the folks who are helping out. I just figured I'd jump in, introduce myself, because you'll probably see me more.
Welcome, welcome. Another new member. That's awesome. Chuck, NC8Q. I see you shuffled up on my list. Say hello and give a brief introduction.
I'm not muted. How about that? Okay, I'm in Dayton, Ohio. Been trying to follow along with you guys, but I don't have Vera, so there's not much on the East Coast I can connect to. Thank you.
All right, welcome. Let's see, who am I going to next? Sean, KD4WLE. Good evening.
Hey, Sean. How's it going? Sean, KD4WLE on the East Coast of Florida, ardent troublemaker, and got a couple notes down here too. Thought I'd stop in and see what's going up. And Chuck, you need to send me that banner.
Charles, you're up next anyways. N2NOV, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the group. We've got some new guys here. Like Dave said, I'm one of the people helping him out trying to get his JNOS talking to his VPN route. We got close this afternoon. There's just something messing up some of the TCP ports. We'll get that figured out. Let's see. JNOS BBS in New York City since 1997. 44 net coordinator for all of call areas 1, 2, and 3, which includes Washington, D.C. So if the Pentagon wants to jump on board, we can work with that. Let's see. I'm part of RRI and the MCOM committee. I head up the local MCOM group here in New York City. Bunch of different things. Things that I work on is getting people up and running on the 44 net, especially those who are having issues with IP encapsulation protocol 4. 3 years ago, NI20 and I came up with the idea of the state ham gates and running VPN, WireGuard VPN hubs from there. I know Mark's been doing some work with the ARDC guys trying to get their things going. I guess they decided to copy our model to some degree. So other than that, I'm here. Got some crazy ideas every so often, and just trying to make it more fun and more interesting.
Thank you, Charles. We'll probably hear from you a little later. David, KM4LQN. Have we talked, or had you done your introduction yet tonight?
No, not yet.
Okay, do it.
It's David KM4LQN outside Richmond, Virginia. Everything's doing fine in Central Virginia. No changes. Hope everyone's doing well.
Thank you and welcome. Brian, N1 or W1BKW. Say hello.
Good evening, all. Brian up in Harrison, Maine. Just learning and observing.
Welcome, welcome. I'd love to have you here. Marcus, WB5, LFS. Say hello.
Good evening. As a guest, I appreciate the opportunity to listen to Jason tonight. Just cutting my teeth on getting into the local group here. So again, thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Paul, K1YZC. Good evening, sir. You're last but not least. And then you can give whatever update Ted was talking about. You're muted, Paul. There you go. Let's hear
There
from-
we go.
There we go.
Paul K1YZC. Since Matt closed the station and relocated, I became this state's NTS packet bulletin board system. We've been handling NTS traffic. Had to learn BBS by fire hose. Still got a couple of glitches, but we're still getting the traffic. Yeah, Charles has been a great help, helping me getting the Hamgate bugs worked out. Still got a couple of those, and we're still trying to connect down to Florida through the AXIP. And I'm having a similar issue with Pat WB2 CMF. So I think once we get those two, the connection issue, it should work together. Been working with Glenn also trying to get the Arden up, and that's got a bit of a learning curve on my end. So it's plus, unfortunately, I'm not retired, so I don't have luxury of just sitting around play radio all day.
Well, that's all right. Neither do I. I'm still a working man. So, and the learning curve, that's what this whole call is about. So let's launch into the night. So for those of you who have been around Packet for a long time, we used to have the NIDA Network, Northeast Digital Association. We used to have this is before the internet, this is before AOL, all that stuff. We used to have an interconnected network that went from Ohio up through New York and Maine and all that stuff down into Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And it was a real network. We had user ports, we had backbone links that only had two, a station on each end. Other people weren't connected to them. And because we didn't have hidden transmitter syndrome on the backbone links, the network would scream right along. And most of it was 1200 baud, some 9600 baud links. It worked well. Dawn of the internet, and 20 years later, everything kind of fell apart, got away from things, and people went on to computers online and they gave up on Packet. Packet was popular because BBSs had just started to come into vogue, and it was expensive to dial a long distance phone call to connect with your modem to get online and talk to other people. So Packet was in its heydays in the 80s and 90s, and we had some really great networks. Like I said, all that fell apart. People started getting interest in Packet again, but still, we've lost the concept of backbone links with hidden transmitters, or with hidden transmitter free links, meaning that you've only got one station that connects to the other end, and other people aren't on that frequency trying to connect, causing packet collisions and having throughput issues because of that. Fast forward to, we've got Jason on board tonight, K4APR. I've known Jason for a long time through the APRS group and the Appalachian Golden Packet group and things like that. And I just happened to look at his video last night about what he had done with the Tarpon network. And Tarpon was started and championed by a gentleman by the name of Tad Torborg, K2DEW. He was very big in the NIDA network. He and I were back in the 90s, and Packet died. He went down to North Carolina. He started the Tarpon network. The Tarpon network has some philosophies that are slightly different from a connected packet network like we used to have. One, they want to avoid the high commercial mountaintop sites because access to those facilities and weather and who can go and fix and get the things working, especially in emergencies and things like that, that was a challenge. He also didn't like the idea that the packet network that was working was basically just bulletin boards talking to each other. There weren't any live people on the network. So the Tarpon network does not condone the idea of permanently automated connected, computers to the network. And then the other thing is that they wanted everybody when they joined to actually be a backbone link. There are no user ports. People are always on at least one backbone link, hopefully more, because that's building the network from ham to ham, house to house, that type of thing. Great concept, great thought process, but in a lot of the areas that have terrain challenges or foliage challenges and a low density of amateur radio operators, you can't find enough people who are interested in packet to then actually get interested with each other to build multi-radio node stacks to do backbone links. Then everybody got worried about, oh, all the old TNCs that we used to do this stuff with, they're all out of production. There's no modern hardware, no modern knowledge, and no modern documentation about packet networks. That has started to change. And we've had a hard time trying to convince people like, well, I'll put a node on. And when they talk about putting a node on, you know, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to put BBQ on the internet and I'm going to put one user port and a TNC. That does not make a packet network. The idea of RF only network is, and bridging all these areas to move information around. Clearly that's brought up the interest of Glenn and the packet RF forwarding network. I can't ever remember that acronym. TPRFN. Started that network where we're using the HF and the Vera HF in a lot of cases to bridge those geographically separate packet networks. Now, it's not real time, it's not pushing a lot of data, but it's taking the BBSs and scheduling using NVIS, mostly 80 meters and some 40 meters, with a 200 to 300 foot radius gateways. So those separated networks are forwarding at least message traffic from the BBSs to keep information moving, not high speed, not real time, but we're not devoid of any information and the ability to communicate over a large geographic area. So
Yeah.
with that, Jason had started after he got interested in the packet with all his work with APRS. Jason is a very big APRS aficionado and knowledgeable man. He has RPC Electronics, a company, and they have all kinds of hardware and adapters and things like that that are great for APRS and or packet. And he built a couple Tarpon nodes, and he put together a nice video. And I watched that video last night when I was coming up with content for this call. And Jason and I are friends on Facebook, so I pinged him real quick and told him that I was going to send him an invite to the meeting, and if he was available, great. I knew it was short notice, but I was going to, you know, tell everybody about that video. So I hope you all watched it. But he's here and can talk about us live. But the idea that I like about Jason's equipment is that for the type of network we build, we could take what he's got, like the 2 network node in those videos, add a user port, put it up on a mountaintop site. That's a packet node, a real packet node. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to turn the floor over to Jason. Jason, do you need presenting skills? And I don't know if I can actually do that. Ted told me I could, but.
So I've got, I do have some slides here. I was going to try to go through real quick. I was actually feverishly modifying them while we were talking.
Okay.
I'm sending a request to share. So hopefully if you're in charge of the call, you'll get a request to approve it.
Where am I on the participants? It's because we've got so many people, the participants list is muted or whatever. I got a message that, so where the hell, oh, maybe I can do it up here. Let me get rid of the
It
chat.
says sharing, the host is not allowing sharing for this meeting.
Well, hang on. Boy, these bifocals are not letting me. Where am I going to find the control for that?
It says, oh, I just got a thing. It says they have declined your request. Just like
Yeah.
everything else.
I think it's on the share screen button right on the bottom, Brian.
Yeah, as an admin for the call, you know.
Advanced sharing options. Okay.
There we go. Whatever
Yeah.
you did, I got it now.
I didn't do it, but it must be Don did. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me
You've got
share.
ADD. Look at all your icons on your desktop. You've got ADD.
All right, so now I should be able to do my slideshow. Are you seeing just
We're good.
the
Just
slides? All right, cool. So I'm gonna go through these fairly quick because I know slides is where you lose people. I did this presentation just a couple nights ago in Charlottesville, Virginia. I had 4 fellow tarponers, whatever you want to call them, go with me, and we had a good time up there. And I think we drummed up a little bit of interest. Anyways, real quick about me, I live in Chesapeake, Virginia. I was licensed back in 1994, and I will tell you, I legitimately was Packet from day one because Packet is actually what got me into this hobby. I saw a demonstration of it, a couple guys with laptops, KPC3s and HCX 202s. We were sending packet back and forth about 8 feet away on an 8-foot table. And I remember just vividly thinking, holy crap, I gotta get into this. This is cool. If I had not seen that, I can't promise you I would become an amateur radio operator, because that was just, to me, that was just too cool. Anyways, I threw in, I'm a former Motorola RF technician, and I'm former NASA. I worked for NASA for almost 10 years in the RF communications lab at Wallops Flight Facility, and I had 6 years with Motorola. So that's kind of my RF background, so to speak. I also was a field tech for various Motorola shops and stuff over time. I'm now currently working for a local, basically it's a military contractor, as a senior bench tech. I climbed up and then I fell back down. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm also on the Tapper board of directors. I'm a director on the board. I'm also on the APRS Foundation board of directors. I'm a director there as well. So I've gotten very involved on the more official side when being part of these groups. My general interest is packet, APRS, P25, and DMR audio. That's the stuff I really like. And then, as Brian mentioned, I own RPC Electronics. Started that in 1999 in my my bedroom, my senior year of high school, and it's grown a little bit over time. Not doing it full time. I wish I could. And as a joke, there's my daughter. She's our QC manager. So, okay, and actually, she's like 2 years older now than in that picture, I think. Okay, so Tarpon, so Brian mentioned kind of the way the NC Packet guys are doing it down in Raleigh in that area. We're mostly mirroring what they're doing, or copying what they're doing. Now, we might have a little difference in the way we do things, but for the most part, I think we're mostly following along. We definitely adhere pretty tightly to the RF only aspect, as well as the trying to avoid commercial installations. The way I explain it is let's say you've been working in that business for 10 years, and your supervisor, whether he's a ham or not, says, hey, I know you're into this radio stuff. Do you want to put an antenna on the roof or whatever? And you're like, cool, yeah, I'm gonna go put a Tarpon node up there. That'd be really cool. And then a week later, he retires, and the guy takes over, comes in and goes, what is all this crap? Get this out of here. And you're like, oh man, I had this really great thing here, and now all of a sudden, everything's broken because I had to take my node down. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. Now for us, our main goal is building a regional and also statewide network. So that kind of falls in line with the general idea of building out these packet networks. We're not a club at all. There's no bylaws or officers or anything. We're simply just a group of guys and some girls who really love digital stuff, and that's just the stuff we like doing. And this isn't going to mean much to most people other than the guys that also live in Virginia. We have nodes set up, people in all these different areas, Gloucester, Williamsburg, hopefully Charlottesville here soon. So I threw a couple of shout outs there. These are some guys that early on signed on to my craziness and said, we'll help you. I'm sure a lot recognize Sperry N4SD. He had a very large packet network back here years and years ago. And I was really happy when he decided to join on and help us out with this. So, all right. We've kind of already covered what Tarpon is, but it's an all RF network. We're typically somewhere between 1200 and 9600 baud AFSK, GFSK. The nodes link to each other. It's a peer or a neighbor topology. So neighbor A is connected to B, neighbor B is connected to C. Maybe neighbor D connects off of B, which makes it, instead of a linear, it's more of a spoken hub kind of thing. No internet linking. We already talked about the commercial stuff. It's Linux based. Basically the nodes run off a Raspberry Pi. We recommend the Raspberry Pi 4 gigabyte model. That seems to be the good middle of the road unit. And the one thing I always like to push is that it's always on, it's always operating. So it's a matter of if something breaks, we know it pretty quickly, because the system, something stops working, So I like that versus, I used the example the other night of, having like a Go bag or a Go box or whatever that sits in your closet for 9 months. And then all of a sudden you run off, you grab it to go do something, you open it up and you find out that all your batteries are dead. And oh, by the way, one of them corroded and so this is a system that can be up and running all the time. And it gets exercise regularly because you got guys on there chatting and using it. So okay, so these pictures are a little bit old. When I go back to the camera, I want to show some more modern versions of what we're doing. But in general, a node is a single, a minimum of a single radio, single TNC, and just keep in mind you need a radio and a TNC per link. So if you've got 2 neighbors, you need 2 of each. If you got 3 neighbors, you need 3 of each, and that's the same for everybody down the road. We mentioned Raspberry Pi. Each node's a link in the chain, so it's very important for people that say they want to do this is to kind of commit to it, because if 6 months down the road they just take it down because they get bored, well, they've effectively probably helped to really break the network. And that's something you have to be upfront with people. You have to say, look, I kind of need you to commit to this if you're going to do it. If you're on the fence, I'd prefer you just didn't, and that sounds harsh, but it's kind of true. We're using a lot of commercial radios that we're finding, the Tate radios are very good, high switching speed, unmodified, does 9600 out of the box. Same thing with the Motorola, like CDM series of radios. We're finding those work very, very well for the higher speeds without any kind of modification, just a couple of changes in the code plug. What you see on the picture on the right is kind of what started off as the original VA Tarpon form factor, so to speak. We've broken that out a little bit more. That's back when the TNCs and the Raspberry Pi were all in the same tray. But down at the bottom, you'll see where like the Pi is in a separate tray and you've got the TNCs in a separate tray. Kind of breaks things out. Makes it a little easier to work on too. And then one of the neat things about these nodes is it's not internet, but it's Ethernet interfaced. So you can put this thing anywhere you want in your house. We've got one guy down in North Carolina right now that has his node sitting in his attic. It's cool enough right now. He's probably going to move it when it gets hotter. But he's got it in his attic with the antennas and everything, and all he's got is a single, Cat 5 going, not a Cat 6. And that's how he accesses his node because it's all done through a web browser. So this is where we're starting to bridge over into a little bit more modern interfaces. Like Brian mentioned, the old days of basically sitting in front of a hyper terminal. We don't have to do that anymore. We can have these more modern interfaces, web interfaces, and so forth. So this is just a quick block diagram of what a simple 2 radio node would look like. You have the Raspberry Pi. It's USB interface to the TNCs. The TNCs, of course, are connected to the radios. There's the up on the top left here, it's your computer / web browser. It can work on a phone, tablet. I've tested on a lot of different platforms. As long as you have a web browser that's fairly modern, it works. And then we have some little node status panels. I'll show those here in a little bit when I show some stuff on camera. Again, I'm not gonna really go over this again. We mentioned the different commercial radios. You can also use amateur grade. These FTM 3100s, unfortunately, they just stopped making these. But when they were making them, they were very easy to modify for 9600 baud. You can kind of see that on the right. I actually have instructions for that on my website. I can always link that later. So here's probably the most popular TNC when it comes to the Tarpon architecture is the Nino TNC. Nino KK4 HEJ. He developed the original Nino TNC, wrote all the code. He's really a brilliant embedded coder. And he doesn't do that for a living. I won't divulge what he does. He's fairly secret about what he does for a living, but he's very good at this, and it's purely a hobby for him. The one on the right is a surface mount version that my company produces. We designed this and we produce this. We went on a little hiatus, but we're actually probably in the next week or so we'll have these available again. I have almost a dozen of them sitting behind me over here, ready to start selling again. This is an example of the web interface I just talked about. When you would log into a Tarpon node, you get basically what I refer to as like an AOL chat room. you've got a chat room there. You've got a listing of all the people in the room. And this is what I would refer to as a more modern interface. This is, the direction we're going in. This is the way we need to go. This is how we get younger people involved in this. I've met a bunch of people in the IT world who got their amateur radio license, didn't really know much about radio, but they know a lot about, subnetting and IP and all that stuff. Those are the kinds of guys we need to draw into this stuff, because they're the ones that will help us write even better applications than this. And this is just a quick, and we've added a lot more since this screenshot, but this is just the Virginia Tarpon Network. Like I said, we've got guys down in North Carolina now, and we've got guys north of this. So this table is an example of how we kind of keep track, who's node A, who's node B of the link, what's their distance, what frequency are they operating on, and the MUBR is what I call it. That's the maximum usable baud rate. And I use that term because I can set up a link, and for those of you who are familiar with Packet, your SNR is all about, can I run this link at 1200? Can I run it at 9600? Do I have to find something in the middle like 3600? That's what the MUBR is how I refer to it. And when we find out what that maximum usable baud rate is, we put that in the table and we use that as our reference. There's a couple more screenshots. I'm just going to kind of go through these pretty quickly. I'm not going to go through these slides because we've got guys here that run this in this meeting. There's no reason for me to go through this. Sperry was very helpful. He made some of these slides for me. I used these at the Charlottesville meeting. This is actually Sperry's setup. He's got his Tarpon node on the left, taking care of basically the local stuff. And then he's got his forwarding node on the right. So that's very useful to look at to kind of understand how he's doing that. And that's just a screenshot of his forwarding node using multiple instances of Vara. You'll find that I'm not a big fan of Vara, mostly because I cannot implement Vara into a TNC or modem like device that allows me to just put it in a box and have a KISS interface. It's a real stick for me. I really wish those guys would allow us to have the specs to do it. Maybe someday it'll be backward engineered, or somebody will come up with something better and they'll open it up. That's a big stick for me with Vara, is having to have it implemented in like basically a full-blown PC. All right, so that's the VA Tarpon net. That actually just forwards to our active map right now. I'm working with our web guy to get some more information up there. I'm going to skip that. This Discord QR code, ignore that. It's actually expired. I need to replay or refresh that. The VA Tarpon, same thing. And all right, I'm going to bail out of that. And while I still have the screen shared, you might have seen when I had my video on, there's 3 nodes sitting behind me, and I'll flip to the camera here in a bit. But here we have this particular node is mine. This is a test node. I'm gonna flip. There's a one under Sperry's call sign, and then one under my wife's call sign, KI4UDD. So basically, this is exactly what you saw in the slide, only this is live. This isn't accurate. I don't know where this like artifact came from. I've got to figure out that, so ignore that. But for example, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to type test from K4APR. And that is now going to propagate through the network. There's on Sperry's and there's on Shayna's. So you can see that the chat message propagated through this tiny little 3-node network I have sitting behind me. Now, one of the things I'd like to show, and somebody mentioned a QT term. QT term is an extremely, extremely useful tool when it comes to just knowing what your node's doing, where are you hearing, what's being decoded. So this application right here is extremely useful. You set up a host to the IP of your node, and you connect to it, and now you'll see activity here. So real quick, I'm gonna take this and pop, let's see here. That's 140, so I'm gonna pop that up. So real quick, I'm just gonna do a a test message again. And you'll see there's my outgoing packet, and there's my response back from the next node down the line. And these packets will keep going. And just a quick thing, if you do a send nodes, this will force your node to do basically an all broadcast. Say, hey, I'm here. If you're there, connect to me. So you can see how this QT term application is very, very useful. Even just in these just short quick little demos I'm showing you here. So, all right. So enough of that. Real quick, I guess, can I ask, is there any questions about what we've talked about so far? Is that okay, Brian? How do you like?
No, you're all right. Go ahead.
Okay. Do we have any questions about anything I've done or shown so far?
Yeah, Jason, this is Mark, N2MH.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Not the question I want to ask, but at one time, did you have some sort of railroad type of icon on APRS? Or was that somebody else?
If I did, it might have been me using like the object to mark like a railroad, like a railroad station or something. I'm really in the model railroading, so I wouldn't put it past myself to do that.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a guy well south of you then.
Okay.
On Delmarva Peninsula. Anyhow, getting back to Tarpon, do you guys do anything besides chatting on that network?
So that's a really good question, and I wish I was a little more qualified. What I can say is the chatting feature is kind of like the initial function that everyone plays with first, because it's kind of the first thing that you see. Now,
The gateway drug? The gateway drug?
yes, if you will. Now, let's see here. I'm still shared here. So there is a BBS function, so to speak. Now, this isn't set up currently on these nodes, but you can essentially do an email like function where I can send an email through the network that will pass through the other nodes, obviously, but once it gets to its recipient, the node will store it. So you do have a BBS like function. It's a little more live, just simply because in the old days, you would connect to the BBS, you check to see if you had a message waiting for you, you download it, you read it, right? And you respond to it. Whereas in this system, because you have this live network running between all these nodes, the moment you send this email, it's going to go out over the network and get there. So it's more like live email than it is the old BBS days where, like I said, you would log in, see if there's a message waiting for you. Now, those of us who've been around a long time, we remember, the old mailbox LED on like the KPC3 or the Cam Plus or whatever. That was also, it was capable of being a little more live. This is like that, but you can also do some small file sharing. That's something that I've only done one time. Tad and I got together and he kind of demoed that and showed me how to do that. So you can send some small files, mostly text files. So you have that functionality as well. A lot of this I personally think is useful in the case of getting your traffic to the guy in your network that's going to now carry it over the forwarding network to the other. That when I look at it on a whole, that's where I really see this as a live network that can get that traffic to the forwarding node. So those are a handful of things. And the truth is we need smart people to come up with more uses, lay the groundwork, have the system there, and then hopefully we can find more practical uses. And of course, as we go up in speed, if I could build a network out right now that was purely 9600, for example, there were no links that were less than 9600. I think you could do some more practical things with that. But when you've got links you're still run 1200 or whatever, there is some limitation there. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to tell you this is a sliced bread. To me, it's really cool. And I've got a handful of, or I've got quite a crowd of people around me who also think it's really cool. When it comes down to it, I love experimenting. And this is the ultimate experimenting for me. Because we've had people come into our group and they immediately start asking about, oh, how can we use this for emergency communications? How can we do this and I'm like, whoa, slow down. That is not our primary goal here. Could it be used for that? Yes, possibly. But that's not our primary goal. You get the orange vest wearing, or a cone guys that, you know, that's all they care about. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not for you then. If you think that if that's what its primary purpose is, you know, I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to trample on anyone that might be listening right now, but you know, it's a hobby. We're supposed to be having fun with this stuff. And when we start getting a little too serious with that stuff, then the fun goes away.
So let me jump in here for a second with this.
Sure.
So Jason, you know, yeah, and we've got both of those types, and the networks that we do have, I've got a bunch of hardware that's starting to fail, starting to get away, you know, that there's no replacements for it and things like that. And again, knowing, and Jason and I have talked about this quite a bit over the years, we can take his concept. I wanted everybody to see what modern hardware you can use, the radios, his beautiful box and his
And I
3D.
want to show you that stuff next year. Yeah.
We can take his concept of his nodes, his node software, you know, the Tarpon stuff is really just a modified version of BPQ.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people use BPQ, so it's very adjacent to what we do on the rest of our networks. But I really wanted people to finally get the concept, why am I harping on backbones and why? And Tarpon is exclusively backbones. There's no user ports, but we can take his node concept, add another radio and put a user TNC and port on there to go with our type of network and things like that. The node building and the node hardware and the stuff that everybody's been worried that it's going away. This is one set of stuff that will work. And so I'll let Jason go back into the actual node and show you stuff about that. You know, a lot of us probably aren't going to be as Tarpon active or Tarpon interested because we do things like we've got chat rooms, BBSs, WinLink gateways, all that stuff. We've got a lot of services on our networks that are being used that is typically not what a Tarpon network does, but these Tarpon nodes that he has built and these suggestions and his RPC Electronics company has a lot of stuff that helps build nodes. So it's very adjacent to what we do.
And I apologize because I'm probably giving you more Tarpon stuff than you wanted to know. It was just, you know, it was kind of my automatic gear is to show you some of that stuff just because we're so proud of it. Real quick, I just jumped in. This is like the chat configuration. This is how we set it up. You know who your neighbors are going to be. You set that up, and then the status tells you open means that those links are connected and running right now. Real quick, I'll jump back under, and this is BPQ 32, just like Brian just said. You know, our routes, there's our route set up between this particular node is the Sperry node. It's sitting in the middle, and it's got my node and my wife's on either side of it. So that's why there's two set up there versus like mine only shows one because it's just between me and Sperry. All right. So let's do this. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, and I'd like to throw in there is that your aspect of what you're doing with Ethernet interface into our browser and phone and stuff like that, that is a huge thing that we need to do to modernize what we're doing with packet radio to to get new people interested into it. So that is very adjacent to what we need to start working towards.
Absolutely, I agree. The modern interfaces, modern ways of getting into it. You know, I love the idea that my node sits on my network here at home. You can't see it right now, but I've got a whole server rack over here. I'm running 3 24-port switches. You know, I've got a pretty big setup here at the house. But I love that I can be anywhere in the house with my tablet, and I can just log right into my node and that and just get into it and do whatever I want right from there. I mean, I couldn't do that 30 years ago, you know.
Right, you had to sit there with a keyboard and a monitor and
yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, one of the things I got into as a kid was taking palm tops, like the LX200 and Sharp palm tops that had terminals built in, VT100 terminals, and I was building portable packet setups, and I was running around with those as a kid, and everyone thought I was crazy. You know, the adults were like, "What is with this kid?" I was like, "This stuff's cool," you know. They all thought I was
Quick
a little
question.
nutty. Yeah.
During the discussion, there was an acronym I wasn't familiar with. VPQ.
That's just a node. That's one of the node operating system softwares. It's
John
G8
Wiseman.
Yeah, John Wiseman, G8 BPQ. He makes a BBS and node software operating system that is very popular and a large majority of the packet networks. So the G8 BPQ software, the node operating system, you've got G8 BPQ, you've got JNOS, you've got
Xnode.
you've got
Or,
a
yeah.
FlexNet, NetROM and VNet and stuff like that. So BPQ is a node operating system. Good question, Frank.
Thank you. I was familiar with Wasserman's name.
It turns out when you write software that's as useful as like John does, you can name it wherever the hell you want. And he'll be known forever.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right, so just off to my shoulder here. So these are the 3 nodes I was referring to.
You're gonna have to pull your camera closer to the nodes because
okay, all right.
Everybody's seeing 6. We've got 30 people in this call right now. So
all righty. So is that better?
Yes.
Actually, let's see. Can I put the focus on mine?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me try that. Or can I? I think you have to do that, Brian. If you want to put the focus on mine. Well, I don't know.
You want it, the viewer wants to choose speaker view instead of gallery view.
Oh, okay. There you go. So if you want to do that to be able to see a little bit better. So these nodes, these are what we kind of call the typical VA Tarpon nodes. I can't just call them Tarpon nodes because the NC Packet guys are doing things quite differently when it comes to the node construction. But essentially, this is all 3D printed. All these panels are 3D printed.
We're looking at 3 separate nodes there, by the way, folks.
Yeah, I apologize. So yeah, there's the blue one in the center, and then the 2 black ones, they're essentially identical. In this particular, there's 2 of the Tate radios, and then there's the TNC tray, and then the Raspberry Pi tray, and then down here is actually well, when I set the camera back up, I'll pick up some of these individual elements and show them to you. So this is kind of on a whole. This is a power supply behind here. So let me do this. Let me set the camera back to where I can hold some stuff up and show you. So let's start with the Raspberry Pi tray. So this tray right here is the exact same tray that is in those boxes right now. And as you can see, there's a Raspberry Pi mounted in there. And the first thing I'll point out, other than the Pi, is this red board. So that is a 3 amp, 5 volt Raspberry Pi power supply that I designed a couple years back that sits right on top of the Pi.
That he sells, by the way. You can buy one.
I do. And it comes with a USB-C to C jumper right here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's how the power gets from the power supply to the Pi. And before somebody asks, I didn't do it through the I/O pins because we wanted to leave the I/O pins unobstructed, so that way somebody else can plug into that if they want to use it for something. For example, this little control panel in the front. Now it's kind of hard to see because it's of the light. There's 2 black buttons here. One is a reboot and one is the shutdown. And these work because there's a script that the NC Packet guys wrote that is part of the normal installation that looks at these buttons, and when you hold one or the other down, it will either reboot or shut down your node for you properly. And then in the middle, it's hard to see, but there's 3 holes there. There's 3 LEDs in there. Behind me, I don't know how well you can see, but there's a blue, a green, and basically an amber LED. The blue top one is the Tarpon. The yellow one, I think, is the script, the BPQ script, and then the amber one is basically the OS is running. So the Pi OS is running, the BPQ script is running, and then the Tarpon scripts are running, and you get that status through those LEDs. So
hold your thing right there.
Sure.
That's why he talked about for the Raspberry Pi. I want you to realize there's power poles on there. You plug 12 volts directly into the Raspberry Pi. Big difference there that most people suffer with using Raspberry Pis. Jason has built that adapter so that you can run a Raspberry Pi out in the field or in your node stack with a 12-volt power supply, power poles. It is a nice product.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, we sold a lot of those. We sold a lot of them over time. And this little blue board, that's the status panel I was talking about. And the NC Packet guys, they have a much bigger one that they developed. It's a big green thing. And I just looked at that and said, they gave away the design for, the schematics and everything for anyone who wanted to build their own. And I just looked at it and said, it just seems like such a big thing where I could do everything in surface mount. So this is actually all surface mount versus, except for the switches. So, so that's that little status panel. Again, that's more of a Tarpon centric thing, but something like that could be used by, having a modified script and doing essentially the same thing on your nodes. So, all right. So that's the Raspberry Pi.
Let me stop you right there again, Jason. So that Raspberry Pi, you can be running your node operating system. You're running the Tarpon node, but you can run BPQ. The other thing is that we have a version of EastNet that runs FlexNet protocol that can just as easily be loaded and run on a Raspberry Pi. Same form factor, same hardware factor. And we've got some nodes that are running that EastNet software. All
okay.
Right.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
He was just showing a modern version of the KPC3. I'm really not up with the old new tech. I've been with ham a long time, but I'm so far behind the curve. But I do have a KPC3 in the basement, and it still works.
Yeah, we've got plenty of knowledge to make the old TNCs work. And again, and we don't have a problem doing that. A node stack computer kind of looks the same. It's going to have the older hardware and it'll take up more room. But again, we brought this presentation because there seems to be so many that weren't around for the old days, for the KPC3s, the MFJ TNCs, the PACCOMs. We're trying to get interested with the new people that have never saw all that stuff. Excuse me. So we can make it work and get people to get back into Packet. Not back into, get into Packet in the first place.
Right.
But
Go ahead.
basically, you're saying in general terms what he just demonstrated or showed with a Raspberry Pi.
Your audio, now your deviation's way too high. You keep clipping on your audio.
Yeah, we're going to try that.
That's good. Yes, right there.
Thank you. Different computer than normal. But basically, a Raspberry Pi and what he just demoed was major pieces to get a packet up.
Any Linux computer will work in this type of configuration, right, Jason?
Yeah, yeah. And now, when you install the just generic, BPQ software, yes, you can run that on. I know they're running that on multiple Linux platforms. I haven't personally ran it on anything other than the Pi, just because the Pi is so cheap and easy. You can spin one up in no time. So personally, that's plus. I can build a Linux computer, around the regular motherboard and everything, but I'm not going to dedicate that to that, when I can do it with a $60 Pi.
Let me make a point about that.
Yeah.
When we're talking about, because we're still building mountaintop nodes, commercial sites, and all that stuff. And a lot of our regions, we're actually on county sites, and we're actually part of the Aries Races organization, so we're not going to get kicked off the sites. So we're not going to put a big Linux computer up there. There's not going to be a big keyboard, big monitor. We can put these node stacks on hilltop sites or on commercial tower sites where we're not going to get kicked off, like you've talked about, Jason.
Yeah.
That Raspberry Pi is a good operating system. And now the reliability of the Raspberry Pi, especially when you're using his power supply so that you're not running too low on the 5 volts and it glitches and all that stuff. That's a big factor with what his power adapter for a Raspberry Pi. So the computer, because we used to have node stacks that didn't have computers. You literally just had serial cables between the DB9 connectors or DB25 connectors between the radios, and there wasn't any computer involved. So node stacks on tower sites, it's not like you're in your shack where you're going to have your computer hooking it to your laptop or a big desktop computer or anything like that. And still, this form factor of what he's building and the hardware and the accessories that his RPC Electronics builds, that's, when you go out there and build actual nodes to be on permanent sites, not the ones in your shacks, that's what we're talking about. Nodes that have backbone links, and let's talk about those backbone links, because they're on different bands, different frequencies. Again, dedicated radio, dedicated TNC on each end of that link, and that's all its purpose is. It's not to let every Tom, Dick, and Harry user ham connect to it. That's what a user port is for. And there's a big difference. But when you build those backbone links, you got to have one going in, one going out, and then the user port. There's 3 radios, 3 TNCs, and something to run it all together. And that's what we're doing with the Raspberry Pi. Frank, I see you nodding, so I'm thinking that maybe we're getting some comprehension here. Is that what?
Well,
Yes, sir. Well,
go ahead, Frank.
Yes,
You're the
sir.
big Windows aficionado. I'm trying to put you on
yes,
the
sir.
straight
I
path.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank.
And I see you're big on my second screen. That's why I'm looking away from the camera.
It's okay. Charles, were you saying something?
No, I'm just providing some caveats, because for somebody like Frank who does everything with Windows and gets spooked by Linux, dangling something in front of him that is still Linux should not be a false path where he'll get frustrated.
Well, can I comment on that?
Go ahead.
We've got a lot of guys that have come along that said they want to do this stuff, and I'm using this as a learning tool for people. I don't know where I wrote it down. I can't find it, but one day I sat down and I listed out every little skill that you could learn by getting involved with this project. Okay. I mean, it started with like learning how to flash Linux onto a micro SD card for a Raspberry Pi, how to SSH into a Raspberry Pi, how to load software remotely onto using SSH with scripts, how to run basic commands. Okay, we haven't even talked about anything but the Raspberry Pi so far. And those are already like 5 or 6 skills you can learn right there. Then we got into learning about wiring a TNC to a radio. Have you soldered before? Well, we're going to teach you how to solder so you can do this. And then setting deviation. Hey, you've never built your own coax cables before? Damn it, we're going to show you that too. There were so many skills that I wrote down that if you were to really sit down and build one of these and do it yourself, you could learn so many cool skills. We've got our guy down, one of our guys down in North Carolina, he got licensed a couple years ago. He hadn't really seriously gotten into it too much yet. He got involved in this, and he just told me the other day, he goes, you have no idea how much stuff I've learned by being part of this, So, and like, again, you're not necessarily going to do the actual Tarpon thing, but if you did, the Tarpon scripts that they've written to pre-install all this stuff makes it pretty easy. I'm not a Linux expert. When it comes down to it, I'm a hardware guy, and I'm pretty decent with RF. That's kind of where I excel. When it comes to like running Linux commands and writing scripts, I can't do that stuff. I'm not capable of it. There's other smart people who've developed it. So I guess the point I'm making is that I would never let anyone say, oh my God, I just couldn't do this. Yes, you can. I promise you can. And guess what? When you hit a stumbling block, we got a support system of in our group alone, we've got like 50 plus people. And I guarantee at least 20 of them can help you with what your problem is,
Well, and the interesting thing that Jason and I were talking about it last night when I suggested he come on the call, he's going to be making some more video series, similar to the one that I sent out in the message last night, so that we're making what we call cookbooks. Here's how you do stuff. So hey, you may not know how to do Linux, but hey, you can burn this chip, or somebody will give you a chip. You hook it up, and then you can use your Windows computer or your phone and use your web browser and just use it. So it can get simple like that as well. And
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a couple of guys who just flat out said to me, look, I don't have the ability to do it right now, and I don't really have the time. If you'll build it for me, you know, I'll pay you back for all the parts and stuff. And I've done that for a few people, you know. And the funny thing is that some of those people were fully capable of doing this without my help. They just didn't have the time. We've got some guys that really don't know a lot right now. They're the ones I'm really encouraging to get their hands dirty with this because they're gonna learn stuff. So, all right, can I want to continue on with the hardware stuff here?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the surface mount TNC I mentioned in the slides, and it's currently sitting in one of our what we call sleds. So this is a little 3D printed sled, and those sleds go into these trays. It holds 2 TNCs. Now I make a sled for both the surface mount and the through hole version of the TNC, of the Nino TNC, I should say. And then you just stack as many of these in your node as you need to. So, you know, and I even make a blank plate that you can print. So let's say you need 3. Well, you put 2 trays in, you put your blank plate over the 4th slot, you know. So that's what those look like. And they're pretty shallow, you know, so they don't take up much space and they don't take too long to print.
Well, so the interesting thing about that, Jason, is that some of our node stacks in some of these sites are a mess.
Yeah.
Your methodology and your hardware and stuff like that allows people to build nice, neat node stacks that aren't a spaghetti mess. So that
Yes.
when they are used in commercial sites, we don't get looked at like, what is that crap over in the corner there?
And that was the thing I was always battling when I was with Motorola and I was going to these sites, you know. You have no idea how much hated hams are when it comes to, well, you might know, Brian, but we are a dirty, dirty word in the commercial radio world. Plain simple. There's no other way to put it. They hate us. They hate us. They don't want us there. They don't want us. They don't, because they know we have a bad reputation for duct taping and baling wiring up stuff and leaving that. And for some reason, people are proud of that.
Oh, Jason, say that. That never happens.
No, it never happens. But the problem is they do it and then they're proud of it. They think it looks good. And then there's those of us that come through and go, oh my God, it looks like hell. And they see that and they go, yeah, of course, that's the hams. That's the kind of crap they bring in here.
Over in the corner, right? Yeah.
Yep, every single time. So I'm big on making stuff look good, functional, but also good, you know.
All right, Mark says mine's bigger than yours. Go ahead, Mark.
That's fine. I don't care.
No, I know Mark wants to do it. So go on, Mark. You show yours. Mine's bigger than yours. Go ahead, show it.
So, and then this is just the surface mount, you know, TNC by itself, not in a tray or anything. And we went with the mini DIN standard for the interface to the radio, where the through hole version uses the DB9. In fact, this is a mock-up. This is a 3D printed case I just designed for the through hole version. It's a clamshell style. It's 2 halves, and then there's 2 end plates. And you can see that version has a, you know, what we call the Cantronics style or Cantronics pinout with the DB9. And yeah, so you can use these too. I mean, in fact, we have a guy that built a couple of these in the cases, and then I designed him a 3D printed tray. There you go. Brian's got the, that's kind of like the
actual Nino TNC with the DB9. I've had this for a while. Haven't put it on a node stack, but the Nino TNC's got all the LEDs. Somebody 3D printed this. I bought the whole thing, like the package somebody used. But
this is the power supply we were talking about. This is another just, I think, really cool thing. So this, I can give a Tad credit for, you know, turning me on to these. So these HP power supplies, you buy in pairs on Amazon right now for $28 for the pair, for 2 of them. And I think they're good for like 60 amps or something.
Yeah, they're computer
beefy.
power supplies, but they're 12 volts only.
62.5 amps. Okay, that's 62.5 amps. Okay, what's the problem here? Well, it uses this card edge connector, right? Well, that's not such a big deal, but you have to have a resistor across 2 lines to tell the thing to turn on. Okay, the NC packet guys, they're soldering right to this. I don't like that. So I just designed a backplane board and I designed some 3D printed guides. So now locks right in, plugs right in. You got power poles, each individually fused. On the front, you've got LEDs to tell you that you've got good power.
I'm gonna jump off a lift here and guess. I bet you RPC Electronics sells that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we do. We sell that. I'm starting to 3D print these covers to go on just so the wire the solder joints are not exposed. I have a plate without the VA tarpon that you can download and print. It's just a
You
more
have one
generic.
that says ham shit.
Oh, we can put whatever we want on it. I can customize it whatever you
laughed
want.
about that one. Did you see everybody laughing if it said ham shit? Because we can put it on the commercial site and that's the ham shit, right?
Well, we can do it. I can add that for you. That's not a problem. Now, here's a neat little thing that I'm working on. I have to show this because I think it's cool. Has anyone seen these little 1-watt transceiver modules by Nice RF? There's a couple different companies there. This is a 1-watt transceiver with a USB interface and everything that stacks right on top of a Pi. So that's one of my Nino
Which band
TNCs.
does it operate in?
This is VHF, but they have it in UHF as well. And that's just stacked on top of one of my, actually what I call my custom. This is a special version of the surface mount Nino TNC. Instead of using dip switches to set the mode, I have a hex rotary selector here. So I'm trying to get away from this. Hey, you need to be at 1200 baud ILP. Okay, the dip is what? That's down, up, down, up, or down, down, up, up. It's trying to remember the dip switches. Instead, now it's a mode. Go mode 7. Go mode 3. Go mode G or Foxtrot. Just go to the mode switch. Just click it, and boom, you're on that mode. So I'm trying to get people to do that or accept that as a. But that's a neat little project, and I have a program I wrote in Visual Studio to actually talk to this thing and program it. But that's just a little side thing I wanted to show. Now, and this is an example of a Raspberry Pi stack with here, let me turn around this way. Raspberry Pi stack with our switching power supply, our GPS, 2 of the Nino TNCs, and then on top, this is actually a LoRa transceiver board we're working on that has a KISS interface. So you can run LoRa and it has pure KISS. So technically I could take that and put that in one of these nodes behind me right now and run LoRa instead of running AFSK or GMSK or whatever. So that's an example. And as you can see, you could potentially take these boards, stack them in there with the TNCs and have an entire node. So one of my goals is to build 2 demo nodes I can take to a club that has a Pi, power supply, TNC, and one of these transceiver boards with a dummy load. And I want to be able to have them in my pocket. I want to be able to pull 2 of these nodes out of my pockets and set it down and go, there you go. These nodes right here will talk. They've got, a transceiver on them and everything. Now, this is something I haven't shown off a lot. I did show off in some of the packet groups. They got lukewarm response. This is what I'm calling the open data shelf. And this is intended to be a node on a backplane, essentially. So there's a power supply that provides 5 volts and 3.3 volts to the backplane. This is our Raspberry Pi module. It's got the Pi on it. It also has a 4-channel USB to UART built in. So it creates 4 5-volt UARTs on the backplane. So now you can plug up the 4 of our Nino TNC cards. There's a Nino TNC card there. You can plug up the 4 of those in. And then this is the radio interface module right here that will support up to 2 radios. Whoops, turned around the right way. And you just jumper it for, so you can have this backplane extended out and you could have 4 of these TNC boards plugged in, 2 of these guys, interface it to whatever radio you need. The idea is to really squeeze everything down into a compact package. So this is another concept. And in fact, somebody mentioned Mark NI20, who's been a long time friend of mine. He and I have been friends for 25 plus years. He's really he really likes that concept. He's working on a bunch of modules now, but the idea is that minus the radios, you can build an entire node in this little backplane, and the backplane's expandable, so you can add more modules if you need to. Anyways, that's another concept. That's something I'm actually getting ready to maybe do some YouTube videos on that as well, because I think this has potential, but it's one of those things that you really have to explain well for people to understand what exactly is the intention with this, was the use. So we talked about some of the radios. I know Brian's well familiar with these. If you are familiar with Motorola, this is actually, I think this is a 1550. That's a 1550. But these radios right here are excellent. If you can get your hands on these, they will do 9600 baud without any kind of modification. The Tate radios I showed back here, they're a great option if you can find them. They're getting a little more scarce now, unfortunately, but you used to be able to get them on Amazon for about, or I'm sorry, on eBay for like 25, 30 bucks. They're getting a little bit tougher. And then if you're looking for a lower cost option, these Motorola PM400s are really good too. These are great because they fit in these node boxes really nice. That, I guess that's what the reason I was bringing up the different models is these radios all with these 3D printed brackets fit in these node boxes very nicely. They're not super long, they're not terribly heavy, and they're easy to use for some of the higher speeds. Now, the PM400, for example, unmodified, nothing done to it, will run 3600 baud without an issue. And we've got some guys already doing that in our network. They're using these to run 3600 baud. So, okay, I know I showed a bunch of stuff. Brian, was there anything that I didn't touch on that you were hoping I would, or?
You know, you've given us a lot more node type hardware, software concepts and visualization for a lot of people, because we've had a lot of people on these calls that they want to get into Packet. Some of them it probably overwhelmed them. Some of them just want to be a user and connect to a node. Which one is that? What is that?
Yeah, this is I forgot to show this before. This is the Motorola adapter we make that plugs. And you know what? I'm gonna rip this bag open. I'll just reheat seal it. So this is an adapter. It'll plug into the standard 16 pin accessory port on the back of like those CDM 1250s I just showed you. And this will break. It'll take it and turn it into a mini DIN. It also has a receive audio pot, and it's got jumpers so you can decide which pins you're going to use on the accessory port on the radio. But this essentially makes it plug and play. You plug this into the back of the radio, take a mini DIN cable to one of our surface mount TNCs, and you didn't have to solder anything. It was plug and play.
I want to say that again. You can do this without having to solder a damn thing.
That's right. And then let me, if I can get the damn thing open here. This is a version we made for those Tate radios. The Tate radio has a DB15, not a high density. It's a 2-row DB15. We make one for that as well that plugs in and converts it to mini DIN. And we've sold a lot of these. A lot of both of these, actually. I've got an order for 10 of these right now going to Canada. So
yeah,
these are popular.
They're going to pay more for that right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, shipping, it's crazy. Back, 10 years ago, the shipping was only a couple dollars more to ship to Canada than to Maine.
Yeah, but is it tariffed right now?
I don't know. But what I can tell you though is that the international shipping is now, it costs me the same to ship something to Ontario that it costs me to ship to Siberia. It's like $27 now. But I still have people buying the stuff from me, so they must want it bad enough.
Well, so if any of you have gone to the RPC Electronics website, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And he mentioned he's also into trains. You're also into some music stuff too. Don't you do guitar?
Yeah, guitar pedal effects, parts and stuff like that. We've gotten into that a little bit. But honestly, during COVID, our train stuff blew up because everyone was stuck at home and they started doing model trains. And we sold a ton of that stuff. We were barely selling anything amateur radio related just because everyone was home playing with their trains.
All right, well, so we're getting into, we try to keep this call to 2 hours, but I see it's probably gonna get a little long in the tooth tonight. Jason, this has been awesome, and stick around, please. We'd love you to, and all the VA tarpon people. So I wanna get some,
Could I ask a question real quick?
yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, Jason, your surface mount TNCs, I know you were having an issue getting them into the States for a while and you were back ordered. You haven't
Not
got
really. It's actually more of a. It was really more of a. Well, I don't really want to divulge what the issue was here because it's not really meant for public consumption. But the issue had to do more with a disagreement I had, and that's been pretty much worked out. So I'm back to building these again. I can get the parts all day long. In fact, I broke this out just to show it as a. This is our surface mount. This is what we call the micro. So you can see compared. This is this. Whoops. See, so damn small. I can barely hold it. This is the Nino TNC micro that we came out with that will actually fit on a Raspberry Pi Zero. It's so tiny, but
capability wise, it's the same.
yeah, absolutely. The difference is it's got a USB-C interface. And it's got a TRRS connector for the radio. It's the same pin out as the Mobile Link device. But yeah, it's a little micro version that we made. Now I haven't decided if this is going to become an actual thing or not. But I built it for fun and it works. So, but yeah, we are. I have I think it's either 9 or a dozen of them that I built last week. And I've got them sitting here, and I just haven't pulled the trigger on reactivating it on the website just yet. But in fact, this is one of them in my hand right now. It's one of the ones I just built recently.
Okay.
So yeah, we're getting ready to do that. We're real close.
Jason, another quick question. This may be obvious to others, but not to me. Since you've got a Raspberry Pi there anyway, and you could do a lot of the work in software, why the hardware TNC rather than like a Direwolf or something that can run Vara FM and other things?
Well, you have that option. You now Sperry has done a lot of work with trying to run multiple instances of Direwolf to run as modems. He ran into a couple issues. One, when it was running more than one instance on the same box, sometimes he had some trouble with it. He also ran some issues where sometimes when he would update the G8BPQ, it would kick all of his custom settings out because it was expecting to see a regular USB COM port, a COM port, whether it's a TTY ACM device or TTY USB device or whatever. It's looking for that. And you had to do a lot of custom script changes to make that work. And I could tell he was really upset the first time that happened because it kicked all of his work out. It completely overrode everything.
Jason?
Yeah.
BPQ will directly support KISS over IP into Direwolf.
Okay.
It's a nice, clean install.
Okay.
But you have to do it over IP.
Okay, yeah. See, and this is a case where he just had a couple of sound cards, and he was just trying to do it right there on the local box. I'm a big believer. Yeah.
In this case, your IP could simply be an Ethernet cable between the Raspberry Pi.
Sure.
Or even on the same Raspberry Pi. You just configure it as local host.
Yeah, one of the things that I liked about having Jason on the call tonight is that I knew it was going to get, all these guys are going to have great ideas on what to do with the stuff. And it's bridging the people who've never done this stuff and didn't know what a node stack looked like and everything like that. Yeah, Mark, Charles, you guys are all like, ooh, yeah, I'm not a tarpon guy, but I can make this work for other stuff. Or Jim is like, why can't we put this stuff in because it's the Raspberry Pi? You absolutely can.
Yeah. I'm a true believer in the hardware. So hardware TNCs, I've always been a big believer in that. And somebody mentioned the KPC3. I got one for Christmas when I was 12 years old. That was what I asked for Christmas. I still have it. It's up there right now. I just always been a big, and I gotta tell you, and I'm sure John, the guy who wrote the Direwolf, John, I'm sure he doesn't like it when I say this because I'm on the APRS board with him. the Nino TNC just is better. It's just better. It's so good. I don't even question using anything else anymore because it's just so good. And it supports all these different baud rates. IL2P on all those baud rates. He just added 19.2 to this thing. Now I don't have any radios that'll support it, but it'll do it.
Well,
You
and
know?
the key to that.
I think that's great, and I agree with you. I'd rather have the hardware, but I also was interested in supporting VAR FM.
And then going back to what I was talking about before, my big beef with Vara is that I have to have a Windows box to do that.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
And I hate that. If I could implement Vara, you know, or maybe not me, but you know, I can't do it, but I could do the hardware, but we can implement VAR easily in one of these DS picks, or an STM32 could do it. I know one of those would do it. And you could say, okay, there you go. There's your VAR modem. All you have to do is plug a USB cable into it and connect it to whatever radio you want. Oh my God. You'd sell those things hands over fist.
To Jason's point about hardware is that when you've got nodes that are up at some of these commercial tower sites, especially in the winter months, you want it to be bulletproof.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't want software glitches. Now, not to say that the software doesn't work well. I love Direwolf and everything like that, and my APRS and my house and stuff like that. I'm picking up APRS digipeaters at distances that it's just amazing. But it's at my house, and if it needs a kick in the ass, I can do it. If it's up on the hilltop, I've got a node that I know a couple of people are mad because half of the network's down because that's the node that I've got to go deal with snow and gates and shit to get into the county site. So sometimes hardware is just better. Neither one of them's right or wrong. This and Jason and all this stuff and how to build a node stack and everything is a major set of tools in the toolbox to make all kinds of new combinations of what people can do.
And one of the things I was going to tell everyone is I spent a little bit of time at lunchtime today just gathering all the STL files, the current version STL files that I've designed for all this stuff. And over the next week, I'm going to work on getting all those put up probably initially on my 3D printing page. And then once we get the VA Tarpon homepage up and actually running, all those files will be up there. So you'll be able to freely just download all those STL files. And I'm here to tell you, I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours into designing those. And I'm just, here you go, take them and you can print them, And we've got some guys here locally been, they went and bought a 3D printer and said, I'm going to go print your stuff. That's the first stuff I'm going to go print. And they did, and then they'd send me a picture a couple hours later. Hey, it worked, I'm like, well, that was the point,
These are the types of things that to get packet networks built in other parts of the country and everything. And Jason, I hope that this also helps, spread the word about what you're doing and other groups and people that have been joining in on this call. I wanted to go do updates with everybody else with the different groups. So we probably should move on to some other stuff. Glenn, you've got another big update for the group and 3MEL. You want to do an update about TPRFN?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. And nice presentation there, Jason. Yeah, if I can share my screen, I'll just do the highlights of what's changed since the last time we talked.
If you can. Maybe you can. There you go.
There it went. All right, so let me get over here. And really what it's boiled down to is we've been busy, and we've added where is this? Let me shut this down. We have added some stations to the some 24/7 stations to the hub. And this is our current layout of RF connections that are 24/7. I won't say the number, but it's the same day. It's the same date as today, the number of stations we have now. When we get to 14, I'll announce it. But and we have a couple others that are coming on. But
interestingly enough, that's looking like half geographically of the United States.
Yeah, we're getting there, and we have a couple people that obviously it's not NVIS, but but Lee, K5DAT has a 20-meter connection to Washington State. And we have another station. In fact, I think Dale was on here. I don't know if he's still here now. He's been messing around. He may be coming on at some point. He's got a 20-meter link to into California. So although it's not NVIS, we can make the West Coast with RF now, if we needed to. But obviously that's not the design of the network, and it works as it works. But so that's our current link. Then of course, we have our polling stations that are kind of peppered in here too. Sperry's one of them. He polls my station most of the day. Every couple hours or so he'll pull down. So we're doing pretty good. Ray and he polls me a lot. I'm having trouble connecting to him during the day because I think he's scanning and we're missing each other. So I let him connect to me when he wants to. So that's going good. And of course we have some Arden stuff going on. We pepper that in there too, for some of the backlinks for some of the guys that don't have Vera up and running. Then we will do Arden. So that's what's going on that piece. One of the other things that we've been working on is our live connection maps, that K1 AJD, who moved from Connecticut to Georgia, which helped us close that link to the south. He's been working on this page. This is kind of his baby. These are the connects just today around the network. These are all Vera connects, the different stations. So you can see that the activity is picking up. We have people connecting, pulling data down, putting data in. A few of them might be RMS, but if you go over here and you click on, I don't even know where I am in here anymore. You can see all the stations that connected to me. And if you want to see how things are going, you just kind of highlight in here and it shows you the number of connects and the signal to noise and what they look like from particular stations. So he's been working on getting that done. I gotta move everybody over here. And then there's the 5-day that you can go out here and see what the network's done the last 5 days and what's going on around the country. And as we bring these stations on, obviously this map is getting busier. But you can go in and see all the connections and where I'm being connected to. I don't connect to most of these stations. I connect to very few of them. They're all connecting inbound connections. I've learned with the network, and we talked about it earlier about frequency being busy and things like that. So what I've done is we have our forwarding partners are arranged as such that I'm running about 20 watts now, and I have my RF gain cranked down to almost like 50. And what this does is allows my partners and I to communicate while the rest of the network, based on band conditions, can be doing their thing. And we don't disrupt each other, but we are talking about, possibly having to, at some point, get another set of frequencies and split the country in quarters and split up the frequencies. Since we're all can scan now, we can all change frequencies with BPQ and the forwarding scripts. If you've got good control over your radio, sky's the limit about what you can do and when you can do it. So that's working out very well. The other piece that we're working on.
Have you looked at time slotting? So when people's forwarding and all that stuff, and
yeah, we're playing with the forwarding scripts to see how that's going to work. We're actually working on a set of instructions on how to be a hub station and how this is going to work out. So as a group, we are discussing next steps and where we need to take this thing. So it is part of the discussion.
Awesome.
We added some links here. So if you go kind of to my station and you look down here, you can actually go in and see what my station has done. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, how many connects I had, 53, 63, the number of bytes in and out. And then there's a monthly total as of this month. Since the first of the month, I've had 116 connections and the data that's going in and out of the network, and that's just my station. And this is the page we're adding in. This is kind of the block diagram of my forwarding. I'll show you that a little bigger in a minute. But you can go to any one of the hub stations and take a look, and some of them don't have what I have, but yet, but they're working on. But you can see what each of the stations are doing and the number of connects they're getting. So there's a lot of real data here as to what's going on in the network, and you can see that even with the number of stations we've had, there's plenty of separation and bandwidth to get through all this data in a day's time, and it's working quite nicely.
You know, that's interesting that you talk about that, because everybody's always pushing, 1200 baud isn't fast enough. You got to go 96 isn't even fast enough. And then when we go back to what you're doing here and looking at the amount of data, no, are we going to be able to do gigabit Ethernet connections across the network? No, but you still have got a decent amount of data that can be pushed even on an HF network. That's impressive. And, if you could start to put an article together about that, I mean, that would probably be interesting information to start pushing out to people.
So like on 40 meters, well, 80 meters at night, at different times of the night, and then 40 meters during the day. Jeff and I in New York, KP3FT, he and I consistently get 1250 bits per second over Vera on HF, and it just flies. I mean, it just takes a couple of seconds and you pushed a message down where 300 next. So pretty amazing what Vera will do. And I understand all the nuances and where people are, but
right. If I can make a suggestion, if you can start talking about, because you've got people that you could throw those numbers out, they don't know what that really equates to. If you can put it in like more human terms, it's like, yeah, we've been able to put like 16 pages of typewritten front and back or something like that, just so somebody can realize, oh, HF is something that we can do this stuff with. And just to get a concept across to people who aren't deep in it like you are would probably help bring more people into the fold, I guess is my thought.
Yeah, hey, we're trying to do that, and like you, Brian, I got a full-time gig, and I got a part-time business, and I got grandkids, and I got all the stuff. So trying to get it all done is difficult at best sometimes. So there's a lot of data that needs to push out there. But let me get down here. This is the page that I was trying to show you on the other side, that we're starting to try to put this together of how each hub station is designed to work. So, I only need to connect a compass point, to one partner north or south. I don't really have there's nobody east, and I don't have anybody directly west of me. So Jeff and I in central New York, we pass the bulk of traffic. And then of course, David in Virginia, and then Brian in Delaware. Brian and I have we compete a little bit because we're only 20 some miles apart, but he's in the loop because he was my VHF UHF forwarding partner until we lost our link. And then we show what our backup stations are. So if for some reason I can't connect to Brian and I need the traffic to move, I can either send it up to Stephen in Maine, or out to Lee in Wisconsin, and then down here to Tony. So we're just trying to, each station starting to develop this path so that everybody understands what the main path is and what the backup plan is there.
So the interesting thing about this diagram, and Charles has always talked about it, and you hear some of these mailing lists like, I want forwarding partners, and everybody wants to have BBS forwarding partners all over Hell's Half Acre, and they think that if I've got 16 forwarding partners, that means I've got a high performing node in BBS. This is those illustrations that either on HF or on the, the backbone RF networks that are full-time connected to each other. This is the concept of knowing your neighbors, forwarding to your neighbors, so that everybody's not out there talking and chattering and all that stuff and occupying the time that we've got to move data. It's, this is one of those helpful illustrations, Glenn. This is a good one.
And then concept is very similar to what Jason talked about, and it's really where I am with this whole packet thing. Is that so we're working on we're putting together as a group of us, and Jim's on it, and a lot of us that are thinking about doing some kind of grid down exercise in the spring with using packet, and this was a regional example of trying to promote people in regions that have a network. Obviously, we want it to be packet, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But in to Jason's point with having his Tarpon network down there, it's the same principle. You have multiple stations in a region, and then the region needs to have a main hub. And in Jason's part, it's Sperry with his connection to our forwarding network. So they can ultimately move all their traffic locally, and then when they need a link to the outside in either direction, they can get it from Sperry. And this is one of the things that we really want to promote, regions start to think about.
Glenn, I just wanted to tell you, Sperry was able to join the meeting here a few minutes ago. So he's actually
is he on?
now.
Oh, I didn't see him.
Yep.
Come on. Good.
Welcome
And then
to Glenn, WH3Z. Welcome, gentlemen.
So the other piece of it that I'm really done unless there's questions, is that one of my things about packet radio, and I'm like everybody else here, I did packets back in the late 80s and early 90s, and then got out of it when my fire service kind of got in the way, and fire chief and all the stuff that I did. But coming back into it and working on this network and wanting to promote packet, and I still think packet has a great big value if people would understand it, even over WinLink. And when WinLink has a nice GUI and they got all the forms and they got all the stuff, and I get it. But for point to point communication and dropping a message into a location and not knowing who it's going to end up with, all those things that packet can do. The part of the problem is we want to promote end users, and we want people to come use these networks. And I don't mean on the very HF side technically. I mean end users, like you spoke about, Brian. Is that there is not enough usable data passing in the US packet network, in my opinion, and there's no real reason for anybody to come use it. And there's no information that they're going to pull down from it, or very little. I mean, if you want to know about every earthquake that's going on in the world, that packet's your place. But after that, it's difficult. So, in my opinion, and groups like EastNet and some of the other ones, we need to understand about starting to move usable data and promoting it so that people want to come and use it again. And until we do that, we can pass all the data in the world, but if it has no endpoint, kind of what's the point? So that's kind of where I am with the whole packet thing, is to try to figure out how to make packet usable again. And the only way I see to do it is to have data on there that's usable and important to what's going on, whether it's MCOMs or whatever it is. Back in the day, there was a ton of data you could pull down, but not the same as it used to be. And how do we get back there? I don't exactly know, but we're building it, and they'll come is true. They're coming. We're building out.
Please.
But at the end of the day, we need to get more traffic going. So these little networks like Jason's building down there, if I know the North Carolina guys don't want to be involved in what we're doing. They don't want the outside world, but some of these other networks that are going on. This, that's the people that we want to cater to. We want to give them an outlet to push their traffic. Do your thing regionally, whatever it is you're doing. That's the beauty of BPQ. It'll handle so much stuff that we can make almost all these modes work. So that's really it on the network. I always say that we have a lot of dedicated guys on here that see the need and have stood up a station, and it's there all the time, and we appreciate everybody's input and participation, and we just keep promoting it. And lastly is the March PackNet starts this coming Sunday and runs for a week, and that's getting busier and busier, and coming across packet. Now we do take some WinLink and APRS now, just because the network handles it. So we take those check-ins as well. But a lot of it's coming packet. Still getting a fair amount of it over AXIP, but more and more is coming RF and Arden. At least how it's connecting and getting to my station where I'm tracking it. It might start out on IP, but it's crossing over and getting into the RF side or the Arden side. Most of the messages, I'd say 75% of them, are ultimately getting in to the network the way they should, and I'm glad to see it. The more RF connections that I get, the better I like it. So I think that's all I have, Brian.
That's an awesome update, Glenn, and appreciate that. To your point about getting users and endpoints and data and stuff like that, we talked about this with Jason. And some people don't like it, but the DigiPi and all that stuff, having the end user interface device in some sort of GUI fashion, especially when it's on your phone, your tablet, and stuff like that. We've got slow speed data networks. We don't need high speed to move the actual important data bits, but to get the users, to get them attracted, get them so that they're interested in, especially these younger crowds that are used to the phone, that are used to the GUI and stuff like that, make that not even last mile, but last few inches over Bluetooth. I mean, that's why Meshtastic has been taking off, because all the operations and the cool whiz-bang shit is on the phone when it's just using LoRa on 900 megahertz. I mean, but because that last interface to the human interface, GUI, visually pretty, easy to use, because that's what everybody's used to using, that can't be lost. We've got to understand that that's going to be how to incorporate and encourage new participants into the system. So Jason, with what you're doing with the nodes, with the HTML interface and the Ethernet interface, because you showed me, and in the video, you can do it over Wi-Fi, so you can walk around the house. People don't want to be married just to the keyboard and monitor. And so that last inches, not last mile, the last inches over into something that's visually appealing to people is going to be important. So Glenn, thank you. Mark, do you want to do a quick update on Arden? I know that I saw you with handfuls of hardware. I don't know if you meant to show us and all that stuff.
Well, it looked like it was turning into a show and tell, so I was ready to show and tell myself. But you want to keep this to a short call. Well, short is 2 hours at this point.
Keep going. Give us some updates.
Okay, so first of all, there's a lot of new people in here. Let me explain what Arden is. Arden is AREDN, and that stands for the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. Okay, this is kind of like the 21st century packet radio. And under the hood, it is packet radio, but it's not AX25 packet radio. It's high-speed networking using repurposed Wi-Fi equipment. And we're not talking, for the most part, routers and things like that you have in your home, but commercially available equipment that's meant to go somewhat some distance. And in some cases, there are some Arden links that are running 40 to 50 miles and passing somewhere around 20 megabits of data over that link. Okay, so Arden is the organization that writes firmware for these devices that converts it from commercial use into ham radio use, and at the same time, get you a couple of amateur radio only channels, so you're not stuck using Part 15 channels and the QRM that goes with that. So this ordinance has been around for almost 10 years now. They've had a continuing software effort, and one of the updates just recently is that they have an automatic routing protocol that is getting a little bit long in the tooth, and they have a new one out, and it's in the nightly build for the nodes. Now, nodes can be anything simple from a $20 or maybe $30 these days. Little home access device like this. Let me make sure I got it on the picture here. Oh, here we go. This is an AR300. What I don't have the two antennas are showing up. Chuck has something that he's holding up. I don't know what that is. Chuck, you may want to say what that is. Unmute yourself.
It's an SXT, a MikroTik SXT, runs about $60 to $80.
Okay, what bands is that on? Are you muted?
It's 5 gigahertz device, has about a 25-degree beam width, runs about 500 milliwatts.
Okay. This device is actually a dual band ham radio, believe it or not. 5 gig and 2 gig. And I can say ham radio because there are channels in here that are ham band only channels. Only hams can use them. Part 15 people cannot use them legally. What shall I say that way? But since you have high speed, well, now you're talking into where networks can evolve into. And the first step is get into the IP world. Because now you're into the world of commercial equipment, off-the-shelf equipment, and you can do wondrous things with it off the shelf. So, for example, if I wanted to link this type of node with this type of node, 2 different nodes, or that device that Chuck was showing, I don't need any special equipment. All I need is an Ethernet switch. Probably a $30, $40 Ethernet switch. And that'll be linking it at whatever the Ethernet switch is capable of. 100 megs. Oh, now Chuck has got a real serious node that is called the Lighthead Grid. That is a dual band node, if I'm not mistaken, that runs.
No, it's single band, just 5. This was just 5 gig.
Okay, is that that's a half a watt, and I think it's what, a 23 dB gain antenna.
24 and a half, they advertise.
Okay, 24 and a half dB worth of gain. So ERP out of that thing is over 100 watts. And that's what,
It's
80
about
bucks? 80 bucks, I think, for that.
It's about 500 watts ERP, I think.
Okay.
24 dB and it's a 600 milliwatt transmitter.
Okay.
So it's more than like 200 times the power.
Okay. You put that up on your roof, you run Ethernet to it, so there's no RF loss. You run it to an Ethernet switch in your shack, and that's your connection to it. Administration is all web-based, and they do work. They work very nicely. Although it's microwave, so you need your line of sight. Now, enough on Arden. What I want to talk about for the BBS sysops out there is something I've been working on personally, along with K1YMI, who's on this call, and BE6VH, is something called PIWX-RIX. PIWX-RIX is a specialized weather radio, NOAA weather radio, in the 162 range, that listens to the NOAA weather radio and does 2 things with the audio. Number one, it makes it into a PBX extension. And by the way, once you're running high speed, you can now make a PBX network, which is what I've done. There's almost 100 of them worldwide, and you can call from one to the other just by dialing the number. So you can make each one of these Pilot's radios into a PBX extension, call it up wherever it is. The other thing it does, it takes the alert tones and makes them into a type of message, either email via SMTP. Lately I have it sending out WinLink messages, and I have it sending out bulletin messages on the packet radio network. And if I can share, let's see, where is that? No, that's not it. Which one do I want? Anyhow, I'll have to get to that. So I've started this up. I have a handful of stations that have put up Pilot's Rich receivers and are reporting in, and they are coming out with weather alerts. And I wanted to show one of them here, which was a snow squall alert put out by one of the weather radios in Sussex County, New Jersey last week. And typically you'll see a lot of thunderstorm alerts, but coming out of Nashville, especially, there's been tornado alerts. So it does have its uses. Hollywood Tricks can use, and this is where my part of show and tell comes in, Brian. Part of Hollywood Tricks can use something like this. This is my breadboard. And let's see, this device here is an RTL SDR dongle.
Yep.
Okay, Raspberry Pi. 5-volt regulator chip, takes 12 volts in, 5 volts out to the Raspberry Pi power pole connector. What else it has? Jason, you might be interested in this for your Pilot, for your Raspberry Pi projects, is this push button switch here. This is a halt restart button. So that if you have a Raspberry Pi that's running, you press the button and it will shut, the Raspberry Pi will shut itself down gracefully. And if it's shut down, you hit it again, it'll start it back up. So you don't have to worry about just pulling the power on it. Now, the other thing, the other way that Pilot Tricks can work is through a dedicated FM radio, like Jason was showing there, the GM 300s, the CDM 1250s, 1500s. And what I had here, this was a shelf I put together with a couple of Kenwood radios. The standard rack shelf, so the Raspberry Pi is on the left, a couple of radios on the back, all the connections, okay? And in here is all the wiring. Now in the middle here is a 5-volt buck boost regulator. And what you can't see is a cable TV splitter, 4-way splitter. This is meant only for reception, so that'll work for this. However, you pull that splitter out, you put a second coax connector on it, or you're the ones use the ones on the radio. Replace the software with something like Direwolf, and now you have a remote 2-meter or whatever meter radio you want. And to give an example how that can work, and Brian, this does work. I have a 2-meter radio here in West Orange, New Jersey, that I use for local BBS. But since it's accessible over the network, over the ARD network, I also access it from my BPQ station 600 miles away in North Carolina. And both BBSs can use the same radio. It's over the network. And you don't even need to put a Raspberry Pi. Well, you do because it's running Direwolf, but you don't need to have the BBS up at the repeater site, up at the mountaintop site, whatever. You just make sure you have good network connectivity to it, and you're done. Okay, so I have that running here. I got 2 BBSs on 1 radio. Now, how many other people could say that?
There you go.
Okay, so that's my report. If anybody wants to receive these weather alert bulletins, let me know.
I know Andrew puts them into our local packet BBS and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, I've been sending him. In fact, I'm about to add one or two more. I'm working with Glenn and 3MEL to get his area on. And I'm working with a group in Chattanooga to get their alerts onto the network.
It's been working very well. It's been going quite a while.
Yeah.
It's nice. And what's interesting is, so there's a bunch of stuff. So Andrew can inject them and then come over our regular backbone packet network, but also Jeff, KP3FT, is on that same network, and he's on the HF network with Glenn down there, you know, so, and that's something I wanted to talk about. We're talking about, Jason talked about the node stacks. We talked about Glenn and the TPRFN. We talked about our packet network, and we're talking about Arden Mesh. All of these things, we've got people on these calls that have interconnected them. It's all IP based. And we're talking with, you know, Charles is talking about the 44 network and all that stuff. Everything is IP based.
Yep. That's the next step for a network.
What's that?
That would be the next step for people running just AX25, step up to IP based network.
That's right. And
so there is some support built into BPQ for that.
Yes.
But JNOS was built with IP from the get-go. When Phil Karn handed me a copy of his net program, even before NOS, that was based on IP 44 network. So Phil Karn at one time gave me a floppy disk with his net program on it and a piece of paper with an IP address to use with it.
Absolutely.
So it's there already. It's going to take some know-how to get traffic moved over to it. But once it's an IP, then you have all kinds of transport available to you. Now, up on your screen, I have what one of those messages looks like. This is the typical message. Well, maybe not typical, but this was a real message that came out a couple of days ago on the 8th. It was a snow squall warning for a county in New York and a county in Pennsylvania. So this is what the no alert messages look like when they're on the bulletin board network. Anyhow, let me stop that. And like I say, if anybody wants to receive those bulletins, if you're a forwarding partner of mine, I'll just add you to the list. If you want to receive them through WinLink, I can arrange that. If you want to receive them through SMTP on either the Arden Mesh network or the 44 network, the ARDC network, I can send you the SMTP that way. Or if you really want to receive it over the internet, I can send it via WinLink and use their SMTP, their email gateway feature, and that does work well. So with that, I can be reached at a number of locations. I don't want to read them off to you here, but Brian knows how to get to me. N3MEL knows how to get to me. Chuck knows how to get to me. A lot of people know how to get to me.
Use the EastNet mailing list too. You know, that's always a great place to get a hold of people. And
yeah, okay. Post a message on EastNet. That's right. I read that. So, Brian, that's all I had to say for tonight.
Well, that's good. Steve Stroh did send me an IP 400 update, but you know, we're long tonight, and that can wait till the next one. He sent me one because I thought I was going to be content challenged tonight, but clearly Mark, Glenn, and Jason, you know, if anybody was bored on this call or wasn't sure that they would be interested in data networking, you know, having Chuck here and the Arden group and all that stuff is really huge. My particular Aries Races group, we use the Arden, especially during the summer months, because we've built camera trailers. Our sheriff's department gave us some little radar trailers. We actually have deployable video camera trailers that we use for a number of events, and we make extensive use of our Arden network for that. You know, there's the slow stuff over HF. There's the fast stuff over the microwave bands with the Arden network, and they all can talk to each other, and that's amazing things. But again, having simple graphical user interfaces to the cool things we do, you know, we've got to have services and reasons to use the network. So Mark talking about his weather radios. We can do so many things on the Arden Network, chat, video. Well, anything you can do over the internet.
Yeah, Brian, one of the things you can do with existing interfaces, for example, everybody has an email program that they use.
Mhm.
Those are pretty much they can be adapted directly to JNOS.
Yes.
JNOS will set up a pop account, so you can have a pop account that you can access from Outlook. You can access it from Thunderbird. You can access it from Clausemail. Right? If you're on, if you have, say, Clausemail, you can also set up NNTP on Clausemail to access your various bulletins that come across the packet network.
You can do that on the Thunderbird as well.
Well, try it.
I do it every morning.
Do you?
And you can
Yeah.
set up
Okay, because I've had a hard time doing that, and I've seen a lot of people echo that sentiment.
you
So
can
what-
set up pop access to BPQ as well.
So one of the things that, everybody's got these cool whiz bang things we're doing. But what I've found that we've got to make good cookbooks or yellow covered book guide type things that the people that are doing the YouTube channels and all that stuff, that they'll start making something that the greenest of green people can follow the instruction on how they can do it. And, using the Thunderbird or using Outlook and stuff like that to do that, if somebody could make a little cookbook for a project for a 2 to 3 to 5 minute video and get it out on YouTube, or to one of these ham guys that has a big YouTube following, this is stuff that, as much as we like to make things technically work, we've got to have materials to teach people how to use it as well to increase the usership. Thanks, everybody. Fantastic meeting. Love it.